Things that we'll talk about with this. These 5 different things here, it's specifically about perfect competition. Well, my goal is for you today is for you to be able to see how these 5 things pertain to perfect competition and imperfect competition. I want you to walk away understanding what the difference is between the two, and also when you look at these, what does it really tell us, and how is it different between the perfect and imperfect? Right now, the challenge is, in imperfect competition, we have 3 different types of market structures. We've got monopolies, you have oligopolies, and monopolistic competition. Now, those 3 all will have slight variances of some of these. But there are going to be some characteristics that are going to be true amongst all of them. So when we do this price-making power, we talk about price-making power, a few different things that it's going to tell us. And I told you that I would call on you and have you share with me your answers just for the sake, since we're recording, I'll just throw it out there myself so you probably won't pick up someone else's voice from somewhere else. So when you look at the price-making power, what this is telling us, what it really leads you to, is helping you figure out what the demand looks like for each firm. Right? So that's one of the different things that it's showing you. You're trying to find, if you say a firm has price-making power, their demand's going to look one way, and if you say that the firm does not have price-making power, it's going to look a different way. Now, these are not really things that we talked about last unit, but I'm going to use the same concepts we talked about, and I'm going to revisit them, but then talk about how it relates to the new stuff. I also mentioned that before, the better you do with Unit 3, the easier Unit 4 test is. Because we're going to talk about these same exact concepts in this next unit. And if you do well on the first concepts, then all I got to do is say, okay, I understand these, I just have to look at them a different way. But for those of you that, if you struggled on Unit 3, in order for you to have success with Unit 4, you've got to first go back and understand those concepts from Unit 3. So you're going to have to come in and do some buybacks, you're going to have to come in and do some extra help. All right? Now, here's what this tells us about this. It's the demand for each firm. Now, if we break it down with perfect competition, we know that in perfect competition, each firm is a price taker. Right? Each firm is a price taker. Now, if they're a price taker, that means they take the price from the industry. So the industry's demand curve is downsloping. And we can go back and visit this from chapter 3 about why something is downsloping. But when you go back and look at why is it downsloping, because if you look at what is the demand of these markers, the demand of the iPods, the demand of headphones, the lamps, anytime that you want to sell more, you have to lower the price because of the law of demand. Right? That's really why it is. So when we look at any industry curve, we are going to see an industry curve is going to have a downward sloping demand curve. But since every firm is a price taker, that means that their demand is going to be perfectly elastic because they take the price that the industry sets. That's what being a price taker is. So anytime you hear a price taker, that means that the demand is perfectly elastic because they're taking the price from someplace else. That's only perfect competition. That's the only time that you will find that. From here on out, we probably won't talk about price takers. We're only going to talk about price makers. So if this is the case, if I'm a price taker, that means I have 2 different demand curves for the firm and the industry. But if I now look at imperfect competition, if you look at imperfect competition, they are all price makers. Which, if you're a price maker, that means that you have influence over the price. That's all that means to you. You were able to influence the price. A price maker means that you have the ability to influence the price. It means that you do not take it from the industry. You don't have some commodities exchange that says, here's what the price of corn is, or the price of wheat is, or the price of soybeans, anything of that nature. So my question to you is, how do these firms do this? All of the imperfectly competitive firms, which monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition, right? So you list every single firm. If we started throwing out company names here, you guys would be throwing out names of monopolies, oligopolies, and monopolistic competitions. None of you would throw out a perfectly competitive one because it really doesn't exist. Right? So the majority of them are going to be price makers. How do firms influence their price? That's a question I have for you, not rhetorical. How does a firm in imperfect competition, how can they influence their pricing? How do they do that? Raj?
Well, if they're the only one making the goods, so say a monopoly, or if they have a deal with the other people who are making the goods too, then they can all together control the price, or that one who's having the goods can control the price.
Okay,
so
all right.
A monopoly and an oligopoly.
So good. So monopolies have total control because they're the only players in there. Let me ask a clarifying question on monopolies. Can a monopoly charge whatever price it wants to?
No.
Okay, good. So we asked that. Well, I think we talked about that day one. They can't because they can only charge up to
how much people are willing to pay for it.
Up to what you're willing to pay for, which is also called. Help me, because I can't go much lower. Because it's called your demand. How much you're willing to pay for, folks, is your demand curve. So in imperfect competition, whatever your demand curve is what the price is. So if we're talking about, if I ask you, how does a firm influence the pricing that they charge? And if their price is their demand, your answer needs to be, well, they have to be able to alter their demand. How do you do that? Well, you have better quality products. You have better advertising. You do all these different kind of things. You put your business in a better location. All those different things will influence your demand. And if your demand changes, your price will change. Right? So a price maker has the ability to alter their demand. So when it says influence price, you can also say it has the ability to influence their demand. And we'll talk about how they do that more specifically later. I just need to lay it out right now and say, what is it really telling us? Perfect competition, no ability because they take the price. Imperfect competition, they have the ability to influence it through advertising and quality. I'll just do this, advertising, quality. I'll say this is called non-price competition, which is quality. It's also like customer service, things of that nature. People shop at Nordstrom's not just because of the quality of the goods. You shop at Nordstrom's because of something called non-price competition, because of how good they are customer service-wise. That's why people shop at Nordstrom's. Then you get into that thing of, I just love being treated so well. And at Von Maur, it's similar to that as well. You get treated differently there than you are at JCPenney. There's a difference in how when you walk in, the feeling that you get, that influences demand. In perfect competition, you don't have to do that at all because your price is perfectly constant. Nothing beyond that. So those four are we had there. The first one for price-making power, this is what it's telling us. This is how it influences us as we go through. Raj.
If there was a monopoly and say you were selling a good that people need to live, so say that this world is getting really bad, environmentally wise, and you have to start selling air to live.
Yep.
That will make you. Will that make you you can't obviously charge whatever you want because if it's too high, then people can't buy it and everyone buys off. But
they all die, right?
Could you let it go extremely high?
What would happen if that was a reality? And let's just say that was a reality. If that was a reality, the government would say, "Sure, we're going to have one firm probably do that, but they're going to regulate them." So the government is going to regulate how much that they need to be able to provide. Because if you allow a monopoly to be out there, a monopoly to maximize their profits is going to not supply as much as they need to. And so they basically are going to kill off people because they want to maximize profits. Mm-hmm. So in reality, that's what would happen, in my opinion.
So natural
They
monopoly?
would be, it would be close to, it would be a natural monopoly, yes.
So
Okay.
just the demand curve would be sort of like a vertical line.
No, because that's I think let's hold on that conversation and talk about natural monopolies if we could. That's in 2 or 3 days. Okay. All right. So the second one we talked about here is optimal quantity and how is profit determined. So these two really relate to each other. We talked about profit maximizing firms and we had revenue maximizing firms. So the question is, first, if we look at this optimal quantity, you got to first figure out, are we talking about profit maximizing or revenue maximizing firms, right? And the main thing is between these two, can you stop that video?